Hi, everyone. This is your narrative story for chapter 12. And I'm going to kind of walk you through the translation of it, helping you translate. Before you get started, you should probably have your noun chart, your verbs from this chapter, not your verbs, but your pronoun charts from this chapter, and your chapter vocab, because you're going to need to refer to it. So, the summary of the story is this right here. Lucia returns home after his bad performance at school, and he seeks advice from his sister about how he can be better. In addition, he winds up being the butt of a joke that Lucia plays on him that we'll get to at the end. So, yesterday in class, we looked over the different pronouns in this story, so you should be ready to see those and translate those. Remember, you can pause this at any time. You can rewind it at any time if you miss what I say, but we're basically going to go through and translate the story together. So if you look at the very first sentence, it says, ego et pedagogus domi revenimus. Yesterday, we talked about ego and how it was nominative. So it is the subject of that sentence, but it has an et after it. So it's attached to something else, pedagogus. So your full subject is ego et pedagogus. We'll make those red. Ego et pedagogus is your subject, and then here is your verb at the end. We'll go ahead and highlight that. You should be able to figure it out now. Revenimus is from the verb revenio, which is not one of your verbs, but you should know the verb venio, and it's just venio with a re on the front. Most of the verbs in this chapter are imperfect, or not in this chapter, in this story, are imperfect or perfect tense. Revenimus is perfect tense. So how do you translate a perfect tense? Go ahead and write down the translation of this sentence. Okay, moving right along. Let's look at the next sentence. It's a little bit longer, and we need to do part of it we need to do it in parts. So everything from statim to the first verb, which is apropinquabat, everybody always has trouble with that verb, is one part of the sentence. And then everything from ubi to the end is a second part of the sentence. So first, let's look. Statim is not your subject because it's not a noun. Pedagogus is probably your subject. Look at the ending on it. Is it nominative? If you like, you can stop this recording and look it up. Then you go to your verb, apropinquabat. Let's look at the principal parts of that verb. That verb's principal parts are apropinquo, apropinquare, apropinquavi. I know it's super long. Apropinquatus. And it means to approach. I always remembered it because that APP at the beginning looks like the APP in approach. So, also, whenever, oh no, I'm not going to tell you that because it's not relevant to the story. Never mind. So, somebody did some approaching. Ubi, remember, can mean when or where. Is a pronoun that refers back to father. So it's going to be translated as he. Now you should be able to translate that sentence. Go ahead and pause this while you look at the next sentence and try that one. All right, let's look at the next sentence. Scivi pedagogum patri de ludo dicere. This sentence is almost unfair because it's in a special grammatical construction that you have not been taught. So what I'd like you to do is translate skiwi is as I knew that. And then it would go into I knew that the pedagogus was doing something. Here's your verb. What was he doing? To whom was he doing it? About what? So it's I knew that somebody was doing something to someone about something. Rewind it if you need me to say that again. This next sentence right here, ego walde to Maybom, should be super easy. It's got a subject, a verb, and an adverb. Now, let's look at the next sentence, which is kind of long. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it. There you go. But, lucky for you, it has a comma. Because it has a comma, we can deal with everything before the comma first, and then we can deal with everything after the comma next. So, let's start at the beginning. You have fortasse, which is one of your vocab words. And you know, if you look in your vocab, here it is, although it doesn't tell you here, I'll type it in. It's an adverb. An adverb cannot be the subject of a sentence. So let's look at the next word, Lucia. Can that be the subject of a sentence? Could it be nominative? Probably. So if you want to check your chart, you can check your chart. If you just have a good feeling about it and you want to go with it as the subject, that's okay too. So we now have Lucia potuit. Translate your potuit, translate your complementary infinitive, and then your direct object. Igatur, also an adverb. Ego, you know, is nominative, so it's the subject of patiwi. Then you have an aam, which is your direct object. And then you have a nice little prepositional phrase here. Let's look at the next one. Literally all that's in this sentence is a subject, a verb, and two prepositional phrases. You should be able to handle that. You should also be able to handle the whole next line, really. Now, remember, every time you get a sentence, you should be going to it, and we're going to start right here with ego. If you look at ego right here, yes, we've already had ego up here at the top. We had ego right here again. It means the same thing every time. And if it was the subject the first two times, it's still the subject. You might worry instead about this pronoun right here because you need to make sure you translate it like the case that it is. So, what is it that Lucius is saying to his brother here? Peto Luciam, auxilium mihi necesse est. Do everything before the comma, then everything after the comma. So peto Luciam, it's a subject, it's a verb and a direct object. And then you have this necesse est, which is it is necessary. And often when you have a it is necessary or it is important that or whatever, you have a dative pronoun. Like it is necessary for me. In this case, it's auxilium that is necessary for Lucius. Next sentence here, there's your subject at the beginning. Here's the verb. Here's the direct object, aam. And then you translate everything after the et. Same thing, same subject. Look, we've got nos and we've got nos, right? And then each one of those is followed by the same direct object, aam and aam. So you basically have two very similar sentences. And you also have two verbs that end with the same ending, right here and right here. So you have two parallel sentences in one. So first we did this, and then we did this. Here you have more conversation. And I have to stop so you can go to the next recording.